This is just a little PTS video about a few potential support builds going into Season 11. So this first one is just going to be a sort of general, more late game orient build. So this is going to be for your cabs, your Charons, any guardians that really can play it safe. Obviously any support mages like Eset, Baron, Nox. It'll be fine on them. This is just a bit of a prediction going into Season 11 as what I think some of the builds will look like. I think starter item-wise, you're still going to be building War Flag most games. They've made both upgrades pretty reliable. I think you're going to see a lot more Spartan Flag, a lot, a bit of a forefront item, but they're both really viable. Warband is going to be better for sieging. Spartan Flag is going to be really strong at enabling both your mid and your carry. I do think Prof Cloak is going to be a really strong first item. It's going to be the same stats, Gauntlet or Prof Cloak. I think Prof Cloak might be a lot stronger. There's going to be a lot more fighting, especially on a character that has pressure. And I think pressure picking is going to be a lot more important, just due to the conquest changes. But after this, my idea for a glyph stacking build would just be going for breastplate, and you're going to be building that into vigilance. Probably not straight away. This is more useful in later team fights and things, especially if you're playing into auto attack junglers. I think relic dagger is fine, but it doesn't necessarily fit into every single build. It'll be pretty important with some of these actives. Magi's, I think, is going to be a very good item for every build. I feel like unless you're into certain comps, this is just going to be a really good option. And as for the last two items, I think it's really open. You could go into an Eldritch Dagger. This is just going to give you every single stat you need. I think this is a really strong late game core. And then your last item. Absolution if you need it. Stone of Binding. We're avoiding any Pridwin. I don't think Pridwin... Pridwin is fine, but I think Breastplate of Vigilance now is going to be a lot more useful. Again, Shoguns is fine, especially if you're enabling your Hunter. Your Void options, as these have come back, we've got Void Shield and Void Domaru, just in case you're, enabling your mid or your carry. If you are looking to do a Gauntlet build, I like to think that this Eldritch Dagger fits in a lot better here. Now, the other problem is, of course, the current crit builds. There are some 100% crit builds, so it's debatable whether Spectral Armor is going to be useful. I don't think it will. I think Spectral doesn't make a big enough impact. This item, it doesn't make you very tanky. It doesn't really do anything for you. If you're playing against crit, this is just a loss. I don't think there's any point in going into it. I think you're just looking to enable your Hunters or your Mages. There will probably be a lot of playing through Hunters. So I think Shoguns is going to be good. It doesn't have cooldown on it, but again, you could probably still fit a Breastplate and a Magi's for a build like this. If you're playing Charon as well, or maybe gods that can leave auto attacks in, like your Kabrakins. Silence, bit of a forefront item. I think this is kind of what some of the builds are going to look like. There's going to be potential for stacking glyphs and just going for a really strong late game. As for your actives, this is where Eldritch Dagger comes in. Divine Barrier, I think, is going to be really strong. Active allows your team to deal more damage, more basic attack damage, and whoever auto attacks through this deals less basic attack damage. I think the crit builds are going to be incredibly strong in carry and in jungle. This is where I say Relic Dagger will be really good, as you can give this item practically 100% uptime. So it's got about 30 seconds, 40-second timer. Having a 100% uptime on this is going to be really strong for sieging and counter-sieging. And then your other option, Horrific Emblem, is going to be one of the strongest actives. And I think Sprint is going to be also a very good ADC enabler. These crit builds don't really have a ton of percent pen. A lot of them probably will fit in an Executioner, but this is giving an extra 10%, and then this is allowing your ADC to just outtrade, And this is a very aggressive option. Horrific is a very good defense. This next build is kind of very physical, aggressive, same sort of style of glyph stacking build that I think will be quite strong. I imagine it'll be really good on Thor, Fenrir, probably not Naja. I think Naja still wants to build Sekhmet. I think it'll be good on, say, possible on Achilles and Shark as well. I think this will be a fine build on these kind of dive characters. So I think there are a lot of similarities between the two builds. Again, if I'm picking a character like Thor, I'm definitely building War Flag, and it's almost definitely going to be going into a Spartan Flag. I think, especially if you're going into a Runeforge, then Prof Cloak is a fine start. This character's going to have a lot of pressure in lane, so he's not going to have any problem stacking it. You've got very low cooldowns, you've got a lot of poke. After this, I'd like to go into a Runeforge, and then hold off on upgrading this. And now I probably go into a Breastplate. However, I think Pridwin is fine as well. I think there's a lot of choice. Keep in mind on Thor, Glorious Pridwin is pretty much useless. You can't really use the first tick, so Reverend Pridwin would be your go-to. And then at some point, Flameforge is great for poke. This is fine. I don't really use it in support too much. Late game, you're pretty much doing the same thing. You're looking for a backliner, you're using your 1, and you're using that Flameforge proc, which unfortunately doesn't work in general practice apparently. As for your 2 last items, there's a lot of options you can go on an aggressive pick like this. Binding is fine. Binding and Void are 2 good options for just Shred. It's going to allow you to do a lot of damage with just procs. You may also want to go Arc Druids. This is a bit of a weird option. Again, Void Stone is also fine if you're trying to enable. If you've got a Guardian solo, this will be a great option. Magi's is fine, especially glyphing it. As for power options, I think Serrated can be fine. Hydra's is also an option that I don't mind going, and Arendite is okay. As for actives, I don't think you're going to want to build things like Divine Barrier and Bracer. Again, if you're diving, you're just trying to create space using Horrific. Thorns, I think, will be a lot better now. Beads is fine if you need to survive any CC. I think Med is still going to be really strong. So Horrific and Med, I think, are 2 very good options. This next build is a Hunter build, Hunter support build. I really only use this build on Anhur support. I think Artemis support is fine right now. Now, with the removal of Executioner Glyph going into Season 11, it does look like Anhur support will be worse. I don't think that to be the case. I think this Envenomed Executioner is going to be really strong. I like Warbanner on him. I think now there might be a bit more of a reason to go Spartan Flag. I'd still rather go Warbanner on a pick like this. I think Anhur is going to use Divine Barrier and Bracer. These 2 options are going to be pretty strong on him. Just for sieging and counter sieging and playing random carry. I think he can use Gauntlet and Prof Cloak. I usually build Gauntlet of Thebes, but I'd probably opt for Prophetic Cloak going into Season 11. And I'd take the Executioner Glyph. I think Shogun's is still going to be his best 3rd option. And now you just have the option of going Void Shield. So this is obviously going to give you a lot of Shred, a lot of utility. This has attack speed now instead of cooldown, which is fine. You don't really need cooldown. That attack speed is going to be nice for you. For your last option, you can go Kins. I do like going Kins last. As long as there's 2 tanks on the enemy team. If you don't need that Kins, then it kind of opens you up. You can go Stone of Binding. Stone of Binding is fine, just for maximum shred. Maybe you'd like to go Spectral here. There is argument to go Relic Dagger. Anhur is going to use Bracer really well. He's going to use Divine Barrier really well. And he's going to use Sprint really well. These are going to enable you and your carry.